let's visit for a little bit about how the foot and ankle makes a difference for balance, for sports, and for comfort in your knees, hips, and low back as well. Let's take the example of horseback riding. You need to have your feet on a platform while your upper body maybe is doing a lot of different athletic activities, and you need to be able to balance on your stirrups while your upper body is twisting and turning. If you don't have good independent ankles and mobility in the foot and ankle knee relationships, then it's very difficult to have your legs not engage when you don't want them to and engage when you do want them to, and to help you keep your balance. So you may need to stretch your feet, and your feet and ankles have a lot to do with posture. They're under postural control. Usually we don't have a lot of tension in the feet and the calves from our belief systems. That tends to carry more through the torso and the shoulders. The feet are more typically about adapting to the ground and to the shape of the body above it. So let's take a look at what we want ideally for movement in this area. If you're a horseback rider and you tend to always balance towards the outer part of your foot, then, and that pattern, by the way, goes very hand in hand with people whose knees hyperextend. So if instead of being vertical for the leg bones, you tend to have your leg bone come back at an angle like this, you tend to be very tight in the calf, and you'll also typically tend to go to the outside of the foot as another way to accommodate that tightness. So then, when you're putting your foot, I just use this for a flat surface. When you put your foot in a stirrup and you want to be fairly flat, it's very hard for your foot to accommodate down to the stirrup and to then have lots of freedom of movement when it gets there. It might get there, but then it's very tight and very limited as far as options for balance. So, ideally, we would like, if there's stretch, teeny little bit of stretch, in some of the muscles on the bottom of the foot, that it could tip forward, back, to the inside, to the outside, and as we were just talking about, get that rotation from above. So I often say, grasshopper, how you break a bundle of sticks? One at a time. So if you have tightness in your calf muscles, you want to do your stretching, teeny little bit of stretch at a time. So instead of taking and leaning your body against the wall in the classic runner stretch of leaning and taking up all the slack in the calf and the bottom of the foot at one time, we want to do this a little bit by little bit by little bit, and we want to use the posture system and the slow adapting receptors in that system to help us get long-lasting changes. So we want a teeny, polite little stretch, and we want to give it enough time that it starts to register in the systems we're trying to change. We don't do a runner stretch and expect that to last for 3 days. We expect it to be more for the time frame soon going running. But the kinds of stretches I'm going to show here are for a long-term change in muscle length. So let me reset the camera. So I have here a point in space, and it is 2 U-nails or fence nails, you can usually get at a hardware store, that are hammered into the wood side by side, and you don't have to have as long a board as this, but some kind of a board, about a foot or 8 inches, and that'll provide a stable place for this point in space. Now, if you have diabetes and have poor awareness in your feet, do not do this exercise. You cannot do this exercise safely. So let me just say very plainly, if you have any alterations in your awareness or sensitivity in your feet, then you should not do this exercise because of the possibility of hurting yourself because of pressure. You want to pad these U-nails, because by themselves that's just too much pressure for just about anybody, and you don't want to cause any harm or pain. This is supposed to be a very polite, persistent, passive stretch to your muscle system. So I'm going to set this on the ground. My U-nails are right here, and I'm going to take at least one layer of toweling. Here's 2 layers over that. Okay. Then I take and put my foot there on those U-nails, and I am not pushing my foot down on the U-nails. I'm just letting my foot sit here and rest. So pretty much it's just whatever the weight of my leg is. My thigh could be resting on a chair more. I'm sitting on a weight bench. I can start over by my little toe, and I am kind of putting that U-nail in different places across the bottom of my foot. I'm exploring where it feels like my foot gets tight. So here it feels pretty good, and it doesn't take much effort at all. I can go up and down, big toe. I can tip to big toe, and I'm not moving my thigh very much, you can see that. I can tip to my little toe, my big toe, and I have twist to the outside and twist to the inside. If I reposition my foot here, now I have considerably less up and down. With the same effort, I barely move, and I really barely can get to my big toe. I can go to my little toe. I can twist, however, all right? But I'm missing a couple of movement options with a teeny little bit of stretch in this one place. So I just let my foot rest there, and you may be able to see that my toes are starting to separate and spread, and I'm not asking them to do that. It is an unconscious movement pattern and stretch that's being provoked by this teeny little bit of load, and now my muscles have loosened up and I can move my foot better. So then I can go to a new place. When I first started doing these sorts of stretches with my feet, I had plantar fasciitis. I had a knee injury, and I could sit in one place for a stretch that kind of tightened up my foot muscles. Here's another place. I could sit there for 15 minutes, and it would take that long to start to get any kind of a change where it would loosen up. So when you start, you might just set your time frame that you might need 10 or 15 minutes in one place, and that's why it's important to have enough padding. You can put too much pressure on the bottom of your foot if you're not careful. So you regulate that with the amount of padding underneath. A golf ball or a tennis ball is too round and it doesn't give the same sort of an effect. So here's another tight place for me. I have very little up and down, almost zero side to side, and very little rotation. And if I leave my foot here for a little while, it will start to soften, and I'll get those movement options starting to be more possible for me. So when you stretch little bit by little bit by little bit on the bottom of the foot, the whole system starts to loosen up, and you have a little bit more movement options for many different types of activities.